Hello everyone, so today we are talking about this book. It is Witchcraft Therapy, Your Guide to Banishing Bullshit and Invoking Your Inner Power by Mandi Em. So this book I initially bought a while ago, not too long. It came out in 2021 and I guess I must have just picked it up, I think when I had gone to a Barnes & Noble, and I just saw it and grabbed it. And it's one of those that it does remind me of kind of more of the more trendy witchcraft. And when I first read it, I was really disappointed with it and I didn't like it. And I've come to realize you just need to be in a very specific mindset to appreciate this book. And by that I mean this author swears, it's gotta be every paragraph, constantly swearing, and is also very trendy in her verbiage. There's a lot of blank AF, and it's like, I get it, but also it's not gonna age well because we don't talk like that. Slang from the 90s, early 2000s, 2010s, and now 2020s, it doesn't usually transfer too much generation to generation. Like the slang from Gen X to millennial, there's a little bit of an overlap and some of it continues on, but not as much. And for some people, they don't really mind. Personally, when I sit down to read a witchcraft book, I want it to use a language that's very uniform. Whether it's a book from the 70s to a book written in 2022, you can kind of tell if it's well written, it will last the ages and doesn't use a lot of slang. And when they use a lot of slang, typically, I mean, there might be exceptions here and there, but for the most part, they don't really, it's not a book that people are going to talk about 20 years later, 30, 40, 50 years later. Now, the information itself is really good. And for the topic that it's covering, I wish the author would have taken a little bit more serious of a tone, just because again, it's very trendy and it sounds like a teenager. And I'm not the only one who felt like this. There was another reviewer that talked about that, and so I'm glad to know I wasn't alone. And so I'll link her video down below where she talked about it. She does a fantastic job reviewing this as well, so definitely watch her video. With that being said, I initially had shelved it because I couldn't stand her writing. I couldn't handle the way she was writing. No matter what the content was, it was just like, ugh, I can't. And then more recently, I've reached a point where I had a situation when my anxiety of like the sky is falling levels gets validated and is totally actually accurate, really sends me spiraling. So after a breakdown and that kind of sheer exhaustion that comes after that, I realized that I just needed to maybe read this book, because I was looking at the books I was planning on reading and I didn't care to read through the Beltane book because I knew I'd probably have issues with it because there's so much focus on it just being a holiday for sex, and that's not a big thing for me, and I really hate how it just kind of minimizes what this holiday could be about. And I was like, I don't want to deal with that right now. And then the other book I was planning on reading was Instant Witchcraft, or Instant Magic or something, by Christopher Penczak, because it's the recommended reading at the end of lesson 2. And I was like, I need to read through that. And so those were the next two in the order to be read. And I was just looking at them both and I'm like, I just don't care. And so I was looking at all of my books and I happened to see the spine for Witchcraft Therapy, so I picked that one up and I was like, fine, I'll read it. Maybe you'll have something to say. And when you're in a little bit more of an emotional state and that matches your energy, yeah, it reads a lot better. So maybe if you're in a little bit more of a kind of life is bullshit mindset and attitude, you might like it a little bit more. But as a younger millennial, you would think I'd be kind of the target audience, young millennial, Gen Z, kind of that age group. But no, it wasn't my jam. Once you actually get past that and you get to the content, it's actually a really good book. And that's surprising because I really didn't think it would be that good. But when you've gone through therapy to some degree, a lot of therapists tell you to do the exact same things in this book, maybe slightly variations, but like the core of it is the same. And when you keep that in mind, like this book is actually very accurate, and it is a very witchcraft way to deal with things that a therapist is probably gonna have you do as well. Of course, there's always the disclaimers to be said about, seek out medical help and medical professionals and blah, blah, blah. That said, not everyone has access to those things. And so like me, if you don't have that, this is a good book to pick up. Again, I've tried therapy over the years. It's expensive. Finding one that works for you is really hard. And also, like, maybe you can't do the medications that either a therapist or a psychologist will prescribe, or your, regular doctor. Like, there's a whole host of things. If you don't have those options, you could pick up this book, and maybe some of these things might help you. At least my experience, your mileage may vary, but for me, the things she tells you to do in this book are the exact same things I've been told to do in therapy. Multiple different therapists, multiple different situations, they've all said the same things, which is what this book covers. Like the witchcraft things they have you do, it's very easy, and it's not terribly complicated. Some of the stuff you might need to gather the ingredients, but a lot of it you probably will have laying around, especially if you've been a witch for a while. You tend to collect a lot of stuff, and so you'll probably have an extra candle or a charcoal disc or this herb or this crystal or whatever. You're likely gonna have the stuff you need, and so it's nice, and it's a great toolkit to use. Like, I have in my notes for the Patreon extended discussion, like 90% of it is just add this to the Book of Shadows, add this to the Book of Shadows, add this to the Book of Shadows, because it's a really good tool set. And if you don't know, I mean, it's different things you can use when you need them. So if you are anxious, there's things to do. If you are depressed, there's things to do. If you want to be more productive and things, there's stuff, as well as like a daily routine to do, which daily routines is really helpful for a lot of people. Like, this book has just so much good information. It just sucks that the writing style kind of holds it back a bit. Again, for me at least, I didn't love the writing style, but the content is so good. So I would love to hear your thoughts if you have read this book. Did you love it? Did you not? What did you think about her verbiage and things? Did it bother you too much, or were you just kind of fine with it, or did you love it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, the extended discussion where we go through some specific quotes and things will be on my Patreon, as well as additional content on the weekends, so be sure to check that out if you can. If not, or alongside, make sure to leave a comment, subscribe, leave a like, all that good jazz. And until tomorrow, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon.